As the eerie sound of wind whistling through the trees fills the air, the group of people gathered around a dimly lit table. The flickering of candlelight casts eerie shadows on their faces, and the only sound is the shuffling of cards and the occasional clink of a glass. In the center of a table, a crystal ball sits, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. A woman dressed in a flowing robe leans over the ball, her eyes closed in concentration. Suddenly, she begins to speak in a low, ominous tone. "Welcome, spirits," she says. "We have gathered here tonight to communicate with those who have passed on the other side." The group sits in tense silence as the woman continues to speak, her words growing more and more urgent. The temperature in the room drops, and the candles flicker wildly, casting strange shadows on the walls. Suddenly, the woman's eyes snap open, and she begins to convulse in her seat. The other members of the group gasp in horror as she begins to speak in a voice that is not her own. "Who dare summon me?" the voice booms. "What do you want from me?" The group sits frozen in fear as the woman continues to speak. It becomes clear that they have awakened something truly terrifying, and they are in grave danger. Alright, let's dive into the cauldron. My name is Kayla, this is Xenu, and we are Cauldron Convos, baby.
Let's go.
We have our candles out here, so we also want to address that we do have water and actually a fire extinguisher
I
in
am
case
the fire marshal.
things go awry. Is that a word? Awry?
Awry, yes.
Things go awry. I don't really know how to spell it. I don't even know what it means, but I think I do.
I know how to spell array.
Array of what? Array, a doe,
Array
a
of light?
deer,
No.
array, a drop of golden sun, sun, or fire if you are having
When
a seance
you
like
mentioned
me.
vulgar accusations in a demonic voice, that just reminded me of every holiday at my family's house.
Literally. If you are new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we post every single week. Now back to the video. Anyway, last week we covered ghosts. Are they real? Are they not real? The ghost video had us thinking about seances, about communicating with spirits. We alluded to seances in the cold opening, but the formal definition of a seance is a meeting at which people attempt to make contact with the dead, especially through the agency of a medium. And the word seance comes from the French word for session and from the Old French seoir, which means to sit. But to really understand seances, let's get into the history of seances and when these even started, okay? The history of seances can actually be traced to the spiritualist movement of the 19th century, which emerged in Europe and the United States in the mid-1800s. That's what 19th century means.
Thank you.
Spiritualists believe in the existence of spirits, obviously, and the ability to communicate with them through mediums who are believed to be able to act as intermediaries between the living and the dead. We actually talked about the spiritualist movement specifically in the Ouija board podcast.
Yeah.
Shout out Ouija board. I love how everything's connected.
Well, it's crazy how the existence of ghosts from last week is connected to seances because mediums talk to ghosts, which is connected to Ouija boards because Ouija boards came from the spiritualist movement that began with seances.
And sometimes ghosts can be bad, which connects to the Exorcism podcast as well as the Haunted Dolls podcast if they embody an inanimate object. There's also, and then it's like the Salem witch trial.
Yeah.
This is the paranormal, okay, guys?
Cap or no cap, ghosts are real.
The things that are weird, that's what we're talking about here. Now, seances were a common practice among spiritualists who would gather in groups to communicate with spirits through various methods, such as table turning, automatic writing, and trance states. We'll get into these in a little bit, so don't worry. And seances often involve the use of candles, which we have here, obviously, incense, and other symbolic objects to create a mystical atmosphere. And seances gained popularity in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in Europe and North America. They were often attended by members of the middle and upper classes who were fascinated by the idea of communicating with the dead and seeking proof of an afterlife. Seances also became a popular form of entertainment, with many stage magicians and illusionists incorporating seance techniques into their performances. However, as skepticism grew in the scientific community, seances became increasingly controversial and were often viewed as fraudulent or deceptive. This is the 1800s, okay? However, as skepticism grew in the scientific community, what scientific community?
I think it became less metal in the 1800s.
Oh, okay, less.
Broke your arm, I think they'd still probably cut it off.
my God, are you serious? Now that we talked a little bit about the brief history, kind of like in America, let's talk about the first recorded seance. Now, the first recorded seance is obviously difficult to pinpoint because the practice of communicating with spirits has been part of many different cultures and traditions throughout history. I love how, like, the first of things, like, you never really know. Like, there could be just, like, this random person in, like, the Stone Age that was just, like, you know what I mean? But, like, how would it be recorded? How would it be recorded, you know? Like, what are they going to call the others and be like...
Well, they draw a little cave painting, maybe. I don't know.
I guess, but I don't think they drew everything that they did.
No, they just drew a lot of horses.
Like, I don't think they would draw themselves masturbating. So, like, how do you know? Maybe they were embarrassed that they were having seances.
Shout out to the guy in Pompeii that was caught rubbing one out by the volcano.
I thought you meant Pompeii as in the restaurant.
Shout out that place. That place closed though. That was sick pizza.
Some guy just masturbating with his pasta, his Alfredo sauce.
No, have you seen the guy just caught?
That's not Alfredo sauce.
Choking the chicken, and then he's like stuck forever with his dick in his hand.
Oh,
yeah, he got caught.
That's bad. Now that is not one way you want to go. Smoke for that guy. And the guy that was rubbing one out in Pompeii, the restaurant. But we do know that one of the earliest, maybe not the first, but whatever, documented accounts of a seance comes from ancient Greece, of course. The philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras, who invented the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah.
I made that up. I could not
Pythagoras definitely invented the Pythagorean theorem.
He did? Oh, wait, he was a mathematician. Duh. What am I, an idiot?
No.
He was another mathematician.
Another guy invented the Pythagorean theorem.
But anyway.
I actually don't know if he did or not. Can you Google that?
For sure.
Who
invented...
That's a gimme.
Pythagorean. I'm going to name my child Pythagorean theorem.
Pythagoras. You're welcome. I knew that.
Whoa,
that was a good guess. See, I'm basically a medium. I can guess stuff.
Why is his forehead so big? You can lay a 747 on that thing.
Smoke.
Like, can someone think of another idiom for landing things on, or for big foreheads?
We can do an A380.
I could.
Which is like the double-decker plane.
What do you do on flat surfaces? What do you need a lot of spin?
I
could roll pizza
bread.
Dough. Yeah.
No, you don't do that on flat surfaces.
Oh, true. I could roll out some bread. I forgot. Oh, yeah, Tony from the Bronx. Pythagoras reportedly used a type of seance known as psychomentium to communicate with the spirits of the dead. This involved entering a darkened room and gazing into a reflective surface such as a mirror or a pool of water to induce a trance-like state and open communication with the spirits. Okay, if the same guy who invented Pythagorean theorem did this... and we're learning about Pythagorean theorem, which, like, who needs to know? Like, in school? Like, do you really need to know that? Versus, do you need to know how to communicate with the dead? Yes.
I think the Pythagorean theorem is pretty important.
The government is doing this. They're limiting us. Don't let education system tear you down from believing in the paranormal, kids. Right?
True.
This guy did both. They don't teach that in mathematics 101. But another early account comes from the Roman historian and biographer Suetonius, who wrote about the Emperor Augustus attending seances in which he communicated with the spirits of his ancestors. However, as I said before, more recently, seances gained popularity in the 19th century with the rise of the spiritualist movement, which was fueled by the claims of the Fox sisters, who again we talked about in the Ouija board podcast. And the Fox sisters communicated with the spirit of a murdered peddler through rapping sounds. They use rapping sounds like, I think that's like this. No, not barking sounds. But anywho, the seances held by the Fox sisters and other spiritualists during this time were widely reported in the press and helped to popularize the practice of communicating with spirits through seances. Now that we talked about the history of seances, now that you know what the definition is, what would actually happen? What's going down when we're lighting these candles, okay?
Yeah, this took forever to set up, by the way, so
yeah.
Please subscribe.
So, shout out to our fellow mediums that have seances. We know it takes a lot,
No, my fingers are smothered in wax right now. And subsequently, my target pants.
Nice. So during a seance, a group of people typically gather in a dimly lit room or often around a table. Like myself, they may hold hands or place their... You probably can't see my hand and you're... Oh, you can see mine! Ooh, I love that. Okay, I hold a bunny's hand. Can you see the bunny?
To hold the bunny's hand.
They may hold hands or place their fingertips on a planchette or a Ouija board to establish a connection with the spirit world. All right, I'm gonna let go because my shoulder is cramped.
I'm being possessed.
I'm not the most fit lady, if you know me. The group then attempts to communicate with spirits or ghosts through a medium who may go into a trance-like state and speak on behalf of the spirits. Sometimes the medium may also exhibit physical manifestations such as convulsions or speaking in a different voice.
That's about when I shit my pants.
You know what this reminds me of? You know in Harry Potter, was it
Professor
Azkaban?
Yeah, Professor Trelawney.
How she's like,
It's much scarier. It's much scarier in the book than it is in
good.
the movie.
Now, other times the group may use divination tools such as tarot cards or pendulums to receive messages from spirits. And during the seance, the room may become cold, and there may be unexplained noises or movements such as the tapping of a table or the movement of objects. Some people also report seeing apparitions or feeling the presence of spirits. Now, the goal of a seance is obviously to establish a connection with the spirit world and to receive messages from loved ones who have passed away, or just to seek guidance from higher powers. However, it is important to note that many seances have debunked as frauds, and like most paranormal, there is no scientific evidence, hence the word paranormal, that the existence of ghosts or spirits or seances actually exist. There's no proof. There's no
Hear me
studies,
out.
whatever.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
There may not be scientific proof, but if some bitch comes in here with a turban on and looks into a glass and then starts speaking in a demonic voice, I'm out of here.
Yep.
I think anybody would be probably out of here.
No proof of it, but there's no proof against it. So
Peace.
take that.
That's all, folks.
Take that, Andrew Taters. I feel like they're the ones that are like, seances are... I don't know.
A lot of people probably are.
They're like, why would you need a higher power when you have Andrew Tate to tell you what to do? It was a common claim during seances that the medium would speak in the voice of the ghost or spirit communicating through them. This is known as spirit possession or control. In this phenomenon, the medium would often go into a trance state, and the voice, mannerisms, and even the personality of a deceased person would be portrayed through them. Now, during the height of the spiritualist movement in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this phenomenon was a popular way for mediums to demonstrate their abilities and prove to their clients that they were communicating with the spirit world. However, many skeptics believe that the mediums were simply faking the voices and mannerisms of the spirits they claimed to be communicating with, using cold reading techniques or other forms of trickery.
Yes, also hot reading, which we're going to get
Cold
into.
reading, hot reading, bing ding ding ding. Also, there's too much smoke, so don't put it. Spirits during seances can sometimes be portrayed as malevolent or frightening. And in some cases, spirits may be benevolent or comforting, providing guidance, reassurance, or messages from loved ones who have passed away. After the Civil War, when their loved ones passed away, they were looking for, what'd you say?
Affirmation.
Affirmation, that they were okay.
Now, hear me out.
Uh-huh.
After my first dog died, my dad had a dream that he was happy and running in the backyard. And that was affirmation. I was like, oh, he's cool.
And was that real though? Or did he just say that? You're like, fuck. You just realized. I feel like that's such a dad, like that's like a Santa thing. Like, yep, I had it. No, he's fine. He's fine. Fuck. Hey, do you want me to talk to him? Oh, he's fine. Oh, also, it's funny. Some of them have melted and some of them have not. Now that we talked about the history of seances, let's get into modern day times and seances, because there are modern day seances still being conducted today. Now, while the popularity of seances may have decreased since the spiritualist movement, there are still people who are interested in communicating with spirits through these types of gatherings.
Now, I wish we could get some opulent people in a room and do a seance in an old mansion.
We can.
That would be a hell of a party.
That's called meditation class on Tuesday.
Yo.
They do that stuff.
They don't do a seance.
They don't, but I'm sure if we asked,
Oh,
they would
we gotta do it.
We gotta do it. We gotta record it. However, modern seances also may take place online. I was about to say TikTok.
Zoom.
Yeah, literally using video conferencing technology or other forms of digital communication. Now, some modern seances may also incorporate the new technologies such as the EVP. Not so new if you're using the Panasonic 90, whatever the hell.
Imagine Zoom bombing a seance.
And like being the ghost. Ooh. Just like your butt cheeks in the camera. Ooh.
Giving him a pressed ham.
Yeah. And they're like, I think that's my Aunt Sally trying to communicate with me. And then just like an ass.
The ghost of Christmas Ham's past.
Popular actors in the seance industry back then were people such as Alan Kardec, who is the pen name of Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivel. Wow, what a name.
Yeah, he's French AF, and he's the father of seances.
I wonder if they've ever studied like how long someone's name is and like how narcissistic the parents are. Because I feel like if you're naming your kid like Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivel, I feel like you're a narcissist.
Shout out to that person in my life that
if
has
you're
a very
psychologist
long name.
and want to do that study with me, let me know. Well, anyway, our good old buddy Hippolyte, a French educator, writer, and philosopher who is best known as the founder of Spiritism. Oh God, how dare I? People are going to come for me now. He became interested in spiritualism in the 1850s and began attending seances and studying the work of other spiritualist mediums. In 1857, Kardec published the Spirits book, which presented the teachings of spirits that he claimed to have communicated with through various mediums. The book became a foundational text of the Spiritist movement and laid out many of the key beliefs of Spiritism, including the existence of spirits, the possibility of communication with the dead, and the idea of reincarnation. Something else we've talked about on this podcast.
Yeah,
Wow.
now this book is like the New Testament to Christians.
Really?
But for spiritualisms, yeah.
Oh,
man.
spiritualist Christians. I think that's the Bible. William Crookes was a British chemist and physicist who was also interested in spiritualism. He conducted a number of experiments with mediums in the late 19th century and claimed to have observed phenomena such as levitation and materialization.
And he definitely wasn't a crook.
Yeah. No way William Crookes was a crook. Because that would be too obvious.
That's a double entendre.
Yeah. Arthur Conan Doyle, best known as the author of the Sherlock Holmes series, was also a believer in spiritualism and wrote a number of books on the subject. He was a member of the British Society for Physical Research and was a vocal advocate for spiritualism and the study of psychic phenomena. I never knew that.
Yeah.
That the Sherlock Holmes author was a freaking fellow.
Only if Sherlock
phenomena.
Holmes could talk to ghosts and probably
Yeah.
solve the murders a lot faster.
Yeah. But as we talked a little bit about before, the Fox sisters were the three American sisters who were probably the most important pioneers in the industry. The Fox sisters were three American sisters, Leah, Margaret, and Kate. Their demonstrations quickly gained attention and led to the development of this movement in the United States. The Sock sisters. The Sock sisters. Stinky feet.
Imagine. It smells really bad in here, and they just slip their shoes off under the table, and people think it's the spirits
2, 4,
communicating.
6 socks.
6
Unless one is a peg leg.
What?
And only 5 socks. Well, I guess you could put a sock on a peg.
It's probably not going to stink, though.
Soggy wood. What is that called again? It's when wood gets impacted with water. I feel like that's a thing. Driftwood?
No. What? I almost said driftwood too, actually, but I didn't want to admit it.
What? I feel like that's a thing, like wood in the water. So the Fox sisters became
What's so funny?
The Fox sisters became famous for their seances, which they held in various cities throughout the United States and Europe.
What's so funny?
They were known for their ability to produce rapping and other physical manifestations, which they claimed were evidence of communication with spirits. Their demonstrations helped to popularize the idea of communication with the dead. However, in 1888, Margaret and Kate publicly admitted that their rapping sounds had been produced by cracking their toes.
Isn't that crazy? Is that why you've been laughing this whole time?
Yeah. I got really cracky toes. Maybe that's a sign that you're a psychic if you have cracky toes.
Okay, let's see him.
Well, I'm wearing a bomba and a sock on this foot.
Jesus Christ. You can find more of that on our Patreon.
Okay. I thought that was so funny that they would just crack their toes.
Well, they made it work, and hey, it's a hustle.
But, like, how loud are your toes?
That's what I'm wondering, too.
Because, like, if you're in I guess it's really quiet in the room. Like, everyone's, like, really quiet, so you hear.
No, even that.
Yeah, if my feet are under a table, unless it was the peg leg.
The peg
They're
legs.
just tapping with it. Anyway, okay. I can't talk anymore. I have blank face. Okay. What? This confession caused a scandal in the spiritualist community. Oh no! And led many to question the authenticity of other mediumistic practices, obviously. Cracking toes.
Yeah, they kind of got exposed big time by themselves.
Speaking of, let's talk about some famous seance cases in addition to this cracking toe.
Even by the Fox sisters, so be warned.
Yes. Now, the Hydesville seances were a series of seances conducted by the Fox sisters, our toe-cracking, fellow sisters. What if I'm reincarnated from a Fox sister? Fox sister. Oh, the
Sock
socks, the
sister.
fox, the crack, the toes.
All 5 socks.
The Fox sisters, Margaret and Kate, claim to communicate with the spirit of a murdered peddler who is buried in the basement of their family's farmhouse. During the seances, they claim to hear mysterious rapping sounds that they believe were the spirit's attempts to communicate with them. It was their other sister's toes. I'm just making that up. The rapping sounds became increasingly elaborate and seemed to answer the sisters' questions, leading to widespread interest in their supposed abilities. The Fox sisters soon became famous as mediums and traveled through the United States and Europe holding seances and giving public demonstrations of their abilities.
Can't imagine that, everything could be their toes cracking. I think that could be part of it. Ghosts, right? In theory, they only have a finite amount of energy to communicate, to make noises and stuff. And this is just what they say. You can listen more about it in the Ghost podcast. But if they want to embellish this and really create a show, I wouldn't be surprised if they could really communicate with ghosts, and they're doing some of the more elaborate rapping, but they're also throwing in a toe crack here and there. Make the little piggly wigglies crack just to sell it a little bit more.
Did they have arthritis? What was going on? They need to lube those things up.
Yeah, lube them up, baby.
Actually, my toes can crack over and over again, so I have nothing to say. The Homecircle Seances were a series of seances held in the mid-19th century by a group of mediums known as the Homecircle. The group included the British medium Daniel Douglas Home, who became famous for his alleged ability to levitate and produce other physical phenomena during seances. The Homecircle Seances were held in various locations, including private homes and public halls. Some attendees claim to have seen ghostly apparitions. Despite their popularity, the Homecircle seances were controversial, with many skeptics accusing Home and the other mediums of fraud. Holmes' abilities were also supported by some well-known figures of the time, including the scientist Sir William Crookes. Maybe his name was originally Cracks.
I wonder why he was...
His toes were cracking. Sir William Crookes, who conducted a series of experiments with Home and concluded that his abilities were genuine. The Homecircle Seances helped to establish Home as one of the most famous mediums of his time, and his alleged abilities continue to be studied and debated by believers in the paranormal and skeptics alike. The Society for Physical Research, which is a non-profit organization that was founded in London, England in 1882 to investigate paranormal phenomena, including seances. The SPR was established by a group of prominent academics and intellectuals. One of the main areas of research for the SPR was seances. The SPR conducted a number of investigations into seances and other paranormal phenomena, using methods such as observing the mediums in action, recording their statements and movements, and attempting to reproduce the phenomena under controlled conditions. The SPR was one of the first organizations to take a systematic, scientific approach to the study of the paranormal, and its research into seances and other phenomena helped to establish the field of parapsychology. Today, the SPR continues to investigate paranormal phenomena and promotes research into the field of parapsychology, including seances and other related topics. Whoa.
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely the coolest because it's like a scientific take on this.
The Margery Seances were a series of seances conducted by a Boston medium named Mina Crandon, who went by the name Margery. The seances took place in the 1920s and 1930s, so a little bit later than our Fox sister friends, and were notable for the allegedly spectacular physical phenomena that occurred during them, and including the movement of objects, levitation, and the appearance of ghostly hands and faces. Margery's seances attracted attention of the scientific community, and she was investigated by a number of prominent scientists and skeptics, including Harry Houdini, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. And Houdini was initially intrigued by Margery's alleged abilities, but ultimately became convinced that she was a fraud, and he publicly accused her of using trickery to produce her paranormal effects. Her reputation was damaged by the negative publicity surrounding the investigations into her abilities, and she eventually retired from the public eye.
I feel like one New York Times hit piece back in the day could kind of wreck your whole career.
How are they frauds? One common method that they use is cold reading, in which the medium makes generalized statements that it could apply to anyone and then narrows them down based on the subject's reactions.
Like, if your father, an old man, is speaking to you, and they're like, oh, well, my father died. They're like, oh, well, they mentioned this time you were a little kid and you ate chicken. It's like, well, I probably ate chicken with my father.
Uh-huh.
And then they just keep going more and more in detail. And then it's like, oh, he gave you a pocket knife. I'm like, I think every dad is giving their kid a pocket knife.
Another method, though, is called hot reading, in which the medium or their accomplices gather information about the subjects before the seance and then use that information to make specific and convincing statements during the seance.
Now, I feel like modern psychics, like if you invite a psychic over, they're going to do that. Like those celebrity people, like people that do deep dives on like that guy that's on TV who draws. Yeah. Power to him.
Another common technique in seances to deceive is the use of hidden props or tricks, such as fake ectoplasm or rigged furniture, like tables that levitate or tables with multiple drawers, to create the appearance of supernatural activity during the seance.
Now, this is where it gets elaborate, and I kind of appreciate, like, if you're going to scam me, don't just, like, crack your toes.
There are some alleged possessions from seances. There have been some reports of people experiencing what they believe to be negative effects following seances and possession by a spirit or, I guess, a demon. Now, some people who participate in seances or other spiritual practices may experience psychological distress or altered states of consciousness, which could lead to feelings of fear, anxiety, or paranoia. So if you're about to have a seance, beware. Harry Houdini, as many of you probably know or have heard his name, was a famous illusionist and escape artist who was actually a skeptic of the paranormal. After the death of his mother in 1913, Houdini became interested in spiritualism and attended many seances in an attempt to contact her. However, Houdini was not convinced by the supposed evidence presented by spiritualists, and he became increasingly vocal in his criticism of their practices. In 1923, Houdini even wrote a book called A Magician Among the Spirits, in which he debunked many claims made by spiritualists and exposed their methods as fraudulent.
I love that.
No, I hate that.
Well, a magician among the spiritualists, well, he probably knows, like, because magicians are all tricks and games.
That's why I'm saying, why out of everyone, really, bro? Like, you do the same exact thing.
Yeah, but everybody who goes to a magic show knows that it's a magic show.
Really, though? Because I feel like Harry Houdini was, like, famous for being, like,
well, he
crazy.
Would do, like, straitjacket stuff. That stuff's legit, though. I mean, he probably had a rigged straitjacket. I don't know.
I don't appreciate coming from a magician. Okay,
a professional trickster.
Yeah, and Houdini continued to publicly challenge the spiritualists, and it was rumored that he even offered a $10,000 reward to anyone who could provide genuine evidence of the paranormal. After Houdini's death in 1926, some spiritualists claimed that he had contacted them from beyond the grave, and that he even communicated a secret code that only he and his wife knew. However, Houdini's wife, Bess, eventually revealed that the code had never actually been used by Houdini, and that the supposed communication from beyond the grave was a hoax perpetrated by the spiritualists. If there's a higher power, why would the higher power let Harry Houdini use a secret code to communicate with his wife while she has seances, when he literally, his goal in life was, like, disprove?
I don't know. Good question.
Like, really? How do you think people's beliefs about the afterlife and spirits influence their interest in seance and other forms of spirit communication? I guess if they believe in an afterlife.
Yeah, I think that seances probably helped a lot of people heal, especially with, like, the modern day medium / psychic. I think that although a lot of their business practices I would personally consider kind of predatory, I think that it's like a necessary evil, because, hey, if a loved one of mine died, I'd probably go pay for a psychic. People believe in everything.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster? A pastafarian. They're legally allowed to wear a pasta strainer in their license photo. Cue the photo.
Well, with all of that being said, good luck if you're holding a seance this weekend. Really? No. Stop. That's scary. This is a seance. We have candles. Stop. Just, okay. Okay. With all that being said, thank you guys for watching this video on seances, this podcast on seances, and we'll see you guys next time here on Cauldron Convos, baby. Bye.